folks saying, hey, it's this whole phase has been an eye-opener, and I've decided or I've realized that work is not everything.
It's not a healthy response to a healthy situation. It is firstly an unhealthy response.
Now we don't have the time for it. Oh, if you have an idea, you quickly have a tool, figure out, create the prototype, simulate it, make the app, run it. Like it's all, I want instant success.
But on the other hand, you're saying, but this tool is there, no? Now, if that tool was really that capable of independently producing world-class work at this point in time, God knows what will happen in the future, then there is no need for the person at all. No?
I want to, create better output, better ideas, but every signal is telling me, hey, there's no reward for this.
You don't have any way, means, and it's not even that you're doing a bad job. It's just, you, like I said, you don't know what you're building.
There's a new word going around in corporate and HR circles, apparently. Quiet contribution. It actually sounds nice, admirable. You quietly put your head down, do the work, get things done. But it's stemming from the fact that 6 in 10 employees are not engaged. They are doing just what the job requires, nothing more and nothing less. So that begs the question, are they really to blame in today's environment? What's happening that is taking all of us from quiet quitting to quiet contribution? Let's find out. Welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. I'm Subha Chandrasekharan, Leadership and Career Growth Coach.
And I'm Hasita. I'm a brand consultant and co-founder at Motley Crue.
We love new words.
I was just going to say that it feels like there are so many new words entering the workplace. I think we also then have the responsibility of filtering and saying which one is significant, right?
Yeah, and this one seems significant. Just look at these stats, Hasita. 59% of Indian workers are not engaged. This is the Gallup State of Global Workplace 2026 report/survey. And this is the very definition of quiet quitting. Globally, 80% are coasting or actively checked out. 80%. If you have a team of 5, that's 4 people.
Yeah.
Wow. And anyway, 70% of this variance in team engagement is explained by the manager. And manager engagement in India fell 9 points in 1 year. Okay. And finally, 37% of layoffs in India now happen over Zoom or Teams. 13% find out when their systems go dark. Now that is dark. And there are enough stories, memes when a round of layoffs happen about, there was this one gentleman who woke up to find that he was supposed to have a call with his manager, but he doesn't have access to his system. And so he called the manager, who said, I also don't have access to my system, so I couldn't tell you that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We're not connecting ever again.
Yeah.
So
behind every single one of those statistics is a story, if you work with the fundamental idea that people in professional transactions are largely good people trying to be competent. Let's start with that assumption.
Yeah.
Right? There will be a lot of things that will happen along the way that will either reinforce that belief or challenge that belief. Mostly it will be a mix of both.
Correct.
And at different points in time, you will tend to have slightly different worldviews. But if you look at a system of adults who are workplace ready, you are looking at people with goodness in their hearts and competence as their baseline. In that context, if I'm saying that someone is either quiet quitting, which was the trend of 2025, and then somehow quiet contribution feels worse to me.
Yeah, it does.
Because you are then performing the job. Like, that's just so sad, no? I mean, especially for creative services, if I were to think, and I will say that we've been very fortunate to have a small but committed team of people, right? I mean, they've all, it's not been an easy year for those of us in creative services, and all of them have lost something personal to them in the last 6 8 months. But when given the option of either choosing to leave and go someplace else, maybe a bigger workplace, or to continue to stay with us despite things not looking that great, I think they choose hope, which I want to acknowledge here. But at the same time, that may not be an option for everyone, right? Like you may look at and I know stories of friends, family who've come up to me and said, but what I want to do is something else.
Yeah.
And the job I am in is literally at this point, I don't talk to another person. No one is invested in my growth. No one is giving me feedback with the intent that I will get better. Right? The feedback is only coming to me when criticism has to be offered. Otherwise, no one is mentoring me. No one is nurturing me. How am I supposed to be invested in this?
Yeah. No, it is a dangerous trend because when quiet quitting came, post pandemic, it was essentially folks saying, "Hey, it's this whole phase has been an eye opener, and I've decided or I've realized that work is not everything. I have a life, and so I'm going to choose that life. If given an opportunity, if I have a choice, I'm going to choose something that lets me experience more of life, and I'm not stuck in this cubicle journey, right? So now, when we're talking about quiet contribution, it's actually saying, "Hey, I acknowledge I'm trapped. I'm here. I don't have a choice, right? And I don't care. Like I'm indifferent now, and so I'm going to do that baseline enough so that you keep me here and I can stay here, and I don't have to exert myself to find joy somewhere else."
But which is such a survival mechanism. That's what you
it
do
is.
when you're under duress, actually.
Correct.
It's not a healthy response to a healthy situation. It is firstly an unhealthy response to also an unhealthy
Which
state
is
of
the
affairs.
reality that there aren't so you can't quiet quit and then take a break and then explore and find the next job, because that may or may not come.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
And so that interim period, you're scared that that will go on forever, and that's not an option, right? Realistically, for who is that an option?
And it's actually a very real fear also. No? I
Yeah.
mean, not all of us go on breaks and become content creators and
Correct,
get the kind of mileage that will set you up for your next life, so to speak. Yeah. But also when you're in the system, and then there are multiple I mean, we do think of organizations and hierarchies for a reason, right? There is the executive layer, which is making all the big decisions in the world. You have the managerial layer, and then you have the people who do the line job, so to speak, if you were to generalize. Now, at each level, if there is quite contribution that's happening, and we're saying even managers are, on that trend, I think we need to understand the pressures that are causing that to happen to some extent. Because when your work is about output, right, it's easier to not see what is it that you're bringing to the table or what you want to be invested in. And frankly, at that point, you may even say, I'm okay with you doing what you were hired for. And all systems need those people. It's not that you always need someone who's constantly engaged, 100% of your employees are always online. Frankly, it sounds a little utopian to the point where it's a little crazy. Right? But if your managers are disengaged, then you've got a real problem.
Correct.
So where is it coming from? I mean, from experience, I find that there is a little bit of we're not talking to each other enough, right? I think, all the generative AI in the world has somewhere taken out our ability to sit with another human being and understand the complex job of getting something done.
And I think it's sitting in that managerial layer, right? Because it's a very, very difficult role. And it has been post pandemic for various reasons. It's gotten tougher. Because you have remote teams. You've hired across geographies, some are coming back, some are not. You're asked to keep people engaged who you've never met in your life. Sometimes they don't even let you see them, right? You're talking to windows. And the manager has, I think, gone through a very, very tough few years, where the employee, and again we're saying the manager, we're always looking at it from these are individuals with great positive intent. They want to nurture that team, they want to be on the winning side and get the project done and make the client happy and all of that, but they don't have the resources. One is their own energy and mental bandwidth, and two, if they do that stretch and they put in the work and they get things done and they really push this team, even the manager is not assured that there's something next for them. Right? Because in that whole, oh, but 50% of your work could have been done by AI. So what more are you doing? Right? What is the stretch work that you're doing? You've been here for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. You need to be doing more. Right? Because that productivity kind of knife is hanging above their head constantly in some way or form.
Which is that feedback as critique aspect,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you're constantly telling someone that they're not doing enough. While I think on some level, we are not acknowledging that all of us are going through this tech transformation at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we are going through it at the same pace, but we are all discovering things in real time, right? It's not that I know something today as an expert in marketing, which no one else has access to. I think
Correct.
information is democratized, first of all.
Correct.
Now, in that context, if you're telling someone that they are not doing enough, you also have to tell them what enough looks like.
Which nobody really knows, right? I think this aspect of tech transformation at the same time is interesting. For example, like if I try to think back, how was it different? Different industries had acceleration at different points in time, right? Like, for example, in banking, we all had legacy systems and continue to. They still sit a lot of legacy systems. But turning points were, let's say, when we discovered that we could serve customers online, right? Like, you build a good online platform, you don't need them to walk into your branches, right? Turning point was this whole, can I centralize my operations? So does everything have to happen at every branch? But technology now allows me to scan documents, to look at images, process checks based on images, so many things, electronic transfer, etc. So can I move work from various spokes to a hub? Right? That was a large part of how banking technology evolved, or operations evolved. If you look at manufacturing, maybe there were turning points in terms of the computer aided design,
and
then computer aided efficiency in manufacturing, then maybe 3D printing, so components that I need I only can design, generate, etc. Right? So different industries, pharma research has had its own
trajectory as well. It's a
right?
little slower because of compliance, but largely yes.
So, but today this tech transformation and AI is happening to everyone, everywhere, all at once, right?
That was exactly what I was thinking as you were saying that. I have a parallel example from economics, and I'll kind of bring it back to context in terms of what we're discussing here. I was listening to this lecture that Professor Chad Jones was doing at Stanford for an alumni batch. And I think this lecture came out about 2 months ago, 2-3 months ago. And his research focuses on the idea of those inefficiencies that are inherent to every system. And he argues that, and he spent his life arguing that those are the inefficiencies that actually, if you look at any global transformation, it looks like a lot, but actually, if you measure it in the form of economic value, which would be GDP, which again we can discuss 7 ways to Sunday about the accuracy of it, but actually, the logarithmic progression that we expect tech to take, it doesn't happen because the system's inefficiencies will temper it. And he stopped just short of saying that maybe given our current situation, it's a good thing that those inefficiencies exist, because the logarithmic growth of this would take us in directions that none of us are prepared for. And I was just thinking that even in the context of this quiet contribution conversation, that is an inefficiency, right? If you look at it at the systemic level, this is something that would hold you back from innovation. So the next logical, I think, response to that at the executive level would be to, I will train everybody on AI, and I will give everybody at every rung of the hierarchy an opportunity to begin using it, which is great. But we forget that people also need time, and people always use things in the context of what is most painful to them. So, somewhere I think in applying this systemic lens to everything and saying, can we make this efficient? Can we make this faster? We are forgetting that the people in the loop are actually what make it colorful and what make it vibrant. And probably they come up with something that you never imagined because you were able to give them that little extra time and runway. And that is engagement. No? Me going on a picnic the next weekend is short term happiness. But me saying, I trust you to use your judgment to come back and find ways or not find ways of doing this job, that to me is,
Correct.
even for managers.
Yeah, because some of the words that you use, which we are hearing a lot less of. Even when I'm speaking to and coaching managers, we used to a lot more often say, talk about innovation, talk about your pet project, talk about that little bit of stretch that you're just trying. You're trying out something, and you'll come back if it's success. Now we don't have the time for it. Oh, if you have an idea, you quickly have a tool, figure out, create the prototype, simulate it, make the app, run it. Like it's all, I want instant success. I want instant validation.
And I can envision the difficulty of a manager in that position, because you're saying my last stand is that I will produce really good work, right? Which will take some time, because I have to go listen to those lectures. I have to go take an interest in things that when the last time I heard an economics lecture was 15 years ago, right? Like, so there's going to be that maturation period. It's almost like baking, right? You have that amount of fermentation, and it's going to take that time for synthesis to happen.
Correct.
But on the other hand, you're saying, but this tool is there, no? Now, if that tool was really that capable of independently producing world class work at this point in time, God knows what will happen in the future, then there is no need for the person at all, no?
And you are sitting and listening to that lecture, right? The number of people I hear, either in person or snippets online, saying that we only catch summaries. Right? So if there is a video you want me to watch, I'll put that link somewhere. It'll tell me these are the 5 highlights. Right? So if there's a paper you want me to read, there's something which will tell me these are the 3 key insights from this document. Right? So we're not even allowing ourselves the process of assimilating new ideas slowly and serendipity, that this thought led to that thought led to, because the tool has already told you these are the top 3 insights. God forbid there's a 4th or a 5th. Like, why do you care?
No, because it came from you, no? It was not something I intrinsically discovered and said. And I think engagement, again, going back to what are some fundamental assumptions that we can make about people, I think people fundamentally are curious to various levels, but curious nevertheless. I think the world at some point does a very good job of telling you that you're supposed to narrow down to this, or, you only know so much. I think that is conditioning. And I think as individuals, the responsibility again is on us to decide whether we want to subscribe to that or not. But when I enter a system, the system can support that. And where again, there's a, what's the catalyst for engagement, right? Like if I'm a curious individual, I come to you and say, hey, this is of interest to me. One way to go about it is to say, great, now go ask ChatGPT what are the next steps on this. Which, by the way, anybody asking that question is probably going to end up with fairly similar answers. The second way to go about it is to really sit and understand where that curiosity is coming from. So my question has always been and continues to be that if AI has actually created and is continuing to create efficiencies, it was supposed to save us so much time, right? Then why are we firstly not seeing that time? And secondly,
what are we doing it with it?
Why are we not using that time to have these conversations? And frankly, where in the organizational structure is this conversation being valued? I mentored a team member.
Correct.
Is one line item among 20 things that you were supposed to do. But if 19 are already being done by AI, then why am I not being,
why am I not able to? Actually, that's a very valid question, that if everybody is so productive and efficient and everything, why don't we have more time for conversations and to talk and engage and brainstorm and ideate together,
Yeah.
why is there such a lack of it?
Yeah.
And it's actually reduced. Like I was listening to Trevor Noah's podcast, and there's an interesting thing. He's with Brene Brown and
Hmm.
his friend Eugene, another South African comedian. It's a very raw,
Okay.
fun conversation about different things in life, and they joke about, like, she's a hardcore sports fan. Like there's very lot of sports she plays and teams she follows, etc. He likes certain sports, and they were talking about it, and the friend doesn't enjoy
Hmm.
sports as a spectator,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
And then he's listening to them, and then he realized, he says, oh my god, this, just listening to you guys talk, I was always seeing it as me, the spectator on the outside,
Hmm.
and 20 men have decided to throw a ball at each other or whatever it may be, because their conversation was about how those 20 men need this crowd cheering and what it gives to them and what they say about it and
Yeah.
all of that. And he said, I never thought that they get something from
Yeah,
us.
that's such a powerful metaphor. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I never thought that the person inside gets something from me outside and that it's a two-way transaction. But all that to say that a very open conversation
Hmm.
changed this guy's view, or at least got him thinking,
On
and
some, yeah,
something, right,
yeah,
on some idea that he
yeah,
held strong, or on
yeah.
some belief that he held strong. And for me, as a fourth person in that room, it
Hmm.
got me thinking about various
Yeah.
things, where you're the insider, the outsider, whatever, that it triggers something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But why aren't, like you said, if we have more time now, we're so efficient,
Yeah.
and I don't even have to spend hours writing a document, but
Hmm.
yes, the system can,
Hmm.
the tool can throw it up for me, and it genuinely does.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
today, if I have the right context and the right words, and I know my framework, because I have done the hard work to create it the first time,
Yeah.
right? I made it on my
Yeah.
own,
Yeah.
right? I opened a Word document, I wrote that, how I want that coaching workbook for that kind of a persona to be, and I've done all of that hard work. Today I can use the tool to customize it a little and to tweak it a little, and it does a really good
Yeah.
job. But if I'm a quiet contributor, I'm not doing that first time work, because
Yeah.
the job
Yeah.
is, I can use the tool directly and meet the requirements of the job.
Hmm. Also, I don't know that there is a better, if especially I think this applies to younger people that we hire. I think sometimes you just don't know. You have not developed the, for lack of a better word, the taste to know
Hmm.
that this is good, but there could be a better.
Yeah.
You don't know,
Yeah.
no? You've never
Yeah.
seen what.
And you're not being told the value in getting there the slightly longer way.
Because the mentor is thinking what? Now, when I try to think from both sides, I think immediately your mind jumps to, Arey, but I have had to follow up with people for 20 days to get this. This was done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the relief of
Yeah.
that is so
Yeah.
profound
Yeah.
that immediately you're hating on the individual.
Correct.
And there is really no opportunity to inquire where the gaps might have been. You're just
Yeah.
saying, you have all the information. Please,
Yeah.
why couldn't you figure it out?
And there is no patience, I don't know, patience, or there is even nobody questioning you, right? So you're not thinking, hey, did this youngster learn anything in this process?
That yeah. Those are the, I mean, I was just thinking the blanket terminology we apply, we call them soft skills. We say
Yeah.
empathy is a soft
Yeah.
skill,
Yeah.
lateral thinking is a soft skill.
Yeah.
Please practice them. Like,
Yeah.
what are you
Yeah.
doing now?
Correct.
If, GPT is really coming for your jobs, then don't make it
Yeah.
easy, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, as on date today, both sides are right. Because the employee says, especially a Gen Z, says, hey, I watched you guys some 5 6 years back, you fired my folks also, right? They were
Yeah,
senior
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and they just got brutally laid off. And I've seen that all of their years, because the Gen Z has also seen that hardworking employee side of the parent, and putting in those long hours
Yeah.
and putting in a lot extra. And so you and I are in the same place. You could lose your job tomorrow, I could lose
Yeah,
my job
that's an
tomorrow.
interesting point, no? Because now I'm thinking like that cultural universe in which jobs exist and workplaces exist. I don't think we notice it in the everyday order of things. Like, the idea that, when I was younger and I was graduating, probably I saw a lot of older cousins apply to some of these big tech companies in India. The ITES was just taking off. And I would have modeled something after them, right? Like I would have said, I will be there on some day.
Correct.
So there's a reference point. But today, first of all, they don't have jobs. And secondly, I am also realizing that there's nothing for me. And probably my children watching are also thinking the same thoughts.
Yeah.
So really, your employer brand is taking hits from so many directions that you're not even aware of.
And not every one of us can do something on our own, right?
Yeah.
We there's a lot of value to systems and corporates
Yeah.
and the learning curves there and the structure and so many things that it teaches you are quite valuable. But all of that is slightly eroding.
Because what was a workplace? A workplace was somewhere where lots of us who largely liked each other came together to spend a majority of our waking hours working on some common goal that we could see. Now, in the saying of that, already you see the number of hierarchies and systems that are formed. But that was the idea.
Correct.
Like if it was a good workplace, that's what it would do. If it was a bad workplace, one of these things broke. The problem is everything is breaking, no? Like at the same time, I can think of like 4, 5 things that are sort of going wrong. And I get that a lot of large organizations are thinking of this in terms of, okay, AI is improving our processes. And therefore, we are letting go of a large chunk of people. But honestly, I think maybe a more honest conversation on what is the economic, stimulus that has caused you to do that. Because over the last 4, 5 years, you've made certain decisions which are now coming with their own payoffs. I find that maybe a little more honesty at all levels is important if we have. I mean, again, do you intend to continue to have people in the system? Are they going to continue to compete against an invisible entity? That invisible entity, the problem with competing with it is it's always going to be objective. It's not designed for emotions, right? It's not designed to say, okay, Wednesday morning I'm feeling very tired because of how many things have been happening, and therefore I will not participate today. It is meant to receive critique. It is meant to, in fact, I have heard cases of people abusing their AI tools as well, right?
Oh my God.
So my point then is that's not a competition, right? There is a place and there is a time to use the tool because it's clearly objective, it's able to do things. But there is also a place and time for people to make the plans on what happens, for all of us to really, I think, get back to some little bit of campfiring, I think. To sit down and share stories and talk to each other and say, do we still believe in this purpose? Do we still believe in these values? And we work very closely with founders, right? I mean, we've decided that we are going to only work with systems where the founders are invested in whatever is the work that we're doing, because communications are becoming more and more important. So, in that context, many times I noticed that bringing people to common ground is not that assumed, right? You can't just wake up on a Monday morning and assume that everybody is on the same page. 90% of the time, people are not. Because we all have lives, we have context, and frankly, we've carried something from the Friday evening, we've overheard something, right? Or we've seen enough and more news that is telling us that our industry is doomed. So the person coming on a Monday morning is not already prepped, ready to, raring to go. So instead of using that weekly all hands to say, you do this, you do this, you do this, which is a tendency, why can't we let people come back with, this is what I'm owning, this is what my responsibility is, and build the system required for them to do that?
And I think a large part of it is that the manager themselves doesn't have all the information.
I'm saying even for the manager, right? Like poor chap and chapet. Like I'm sure it's not easy doing the job that they are doing of trying to be the translator between.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, if I try to connect with this group and I try to say, let's brainstorm, let's ideate, they're asking me, like the first tough question they ask me, I don't have an answer because nobody is shining that light on me or making me part of those conversations, saying this is what we're thinking, this is what we're headed, etc. I've been told, hey, you have tools, you had 20 people, how can you make that 15? How can you give me the output faster? But remember, somehow you're going to keep them engaged also.
Yeah, and by the way, tomorrow morning you may not even have access to all these company provided.
And suddenly you may lose 5 of them, and you'll also come to know when they come to know. Because why do you need to know? Like right? So I think the manager is definitely caught in the middle, and the employee is very rightly saying, tell me.
Yeah, this is my bare minimum effort
Yeah,
for
yeah,
the number of non guarantees that you're providing. This is
yeah,
the extent to which I am willing to
yeah.
show up.
And I'm just wondering, is a quiet contribution mediocre? Like, is that an assumption we're making, or is it like what is that line? Like, where does it go from quiet contribution to mediocre, or is quiet contribution that good version, that just good enough,
I think the latter,
right?
honestly,
Um,
which is still a loss for everyone.
Definitely, definitely.
Right. Because of obvious reasons, I think, to a large extent. But to say I am never going to imagine something better, that engagement again with work is
Hmm.
gone, right? Like,
Hmm.
if you asked me for this, I'm going to give you the best version of this.
Hmm.
There's never going to be an imagination of what else could be, because firstly, you've not given me the information to imagine
Hmm.
better.
Hmm.
And secondly, even when I've come up with it, perhaps it's possible that it's not been encouraged, or it's been shot down.
Yeah.
And I think large organizations sometimes, I don't think they realize enough the downstream effects they have, because we all mimic them, right? Like when you're a smaller
Hmm.
entity, you're
Hmm.
always looking to the bigger one to guide you on,
Correct.
what happens. And frankly,
Correct.
they are also your source of business in most cases.
Yeah.
So that vertical supply
Yeah.
chain is very true.
Yeah.
So in those cases, I would, in this case, place the onus on the large organizations to begin to figure their shit out a little bit, because you can't be breaking everything at the scale and size that you are at the same time.
Hmm.
Or if you're going to do it and you know you're going to cause disruptions, do you have the experts and do you have the people in place to do them without upending everything that was true for the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years?
Hmm. And it's made me reflect quite a bit on, we used to do a lot of content work at
Mm-hmm.
Raincraft, and it was a very specific choice to shut that down,
Yeah.
right? And I think that came from multiple things that we've been talking about. And I also came to realize that there was a large part of, like, there was the onus on me also.
Hmm.
And maybe looking back, I needed to have done it differently,
Hmm.
right? Because this was let's say early pandemic and through the pandemic, where there was a lot going on for people, but there was also this new animal of AI, right? And in writing it, I think that's where its first impact
Yeah,
was,
yeah, it was
right? Now
100%.
everybody could string sentences together, and the need for content writing was being questioned
Hmm.
100%, right?
I was sadly thinking that in the last 10 years of this happening, right? For one, ChatGPT may be new, but the idea of writing using AI is not new,
Hmm.
right? It was always around. And the number of content jobs have only grown in the last.
So that's why I wonder,
So,
like, if I did have a genuine interest in ramping up that content wing, what should I have done differently or needed to do differently? Because what I saw was probably what, let's, me as the manager and founder said, hey, this whole the group of people who need to be generating really, in a way, stepping up.
excellent. Yeah,
Like, you're
yeah.
trying to beat the system, you're trying to beat that tool and the algorithm and and say, hey, the human element in writing is very important, and hence client choose me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll give you superlative stuff. But I kept feeling like that group has said, okay, where's the line I need to draw, right? What is just good enough? Because, and they're not wrong, even the client is not discerning enough to say what is written by human versus
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is written by tool.
Yeah.
So I just have to match the tool. And for a human actually to match the tool, you don't have to rise, you have to fall.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I need to do less actually, because I only need to match the tool. Right. And so, what was my role as a leader, founder, manager, if I wanted to really do more of that? There were many reasons why I had also had enough. But I needed to have clarity as to what's important to us. How do I engage with each of you? How do I invest more time, not less? So, and and that's not easy to do in difficult times or in unknowns.
And that
Is it
again,
going to pay off? Because I invest all of that, and you guys also, let's say, step up and invest, but the client on the other side is saying, oh, but there's AI, so can't I pay you 50%?
which is exactly where we are finding ourselves now, right? I mean, it's not so much, and I've written about this, that it's not the concern that okay, a lot of what used to be our expert knowledge has become more accessible. No, honestly, I'm glad, because it educates people. It makes it seem less like a frivolity and more like a necessity, the work that we do. But at the same time, I'm also standing at this crossroads of saying I want to do better. I can imagine and I know what that better looks like. And I'm going to push my team to learn that aspect of things as well and give them the time to make that happen. And they, for their part are also picking up and saying, yes, we can imagine a better and let's, do all of that. But I can never predict the other side, which is impacted and affected by the same set of forces and tools.
Yeah.
First of all, the economic forces.
Correct.
Secondly, the technology forces. And again, going back to the assumption of good intent, right? I am looking then for clients who understand that they have to invest in this more, not less. Right? It's not an outsourced job anymore.
Yeah.
So that shift, I think, for a lot of vendors, agencies, partners, is going to be a little bit of an uphill climb.
Yeah. No, and I think this disengagement all around, because it's we've talked about the quiet contributing employee, but like what you're experiencing, even the person giving you the brief is saying what is bare minimum I have to tell you.
Exactly.
What is bare minimum I have to do? Because hey, there are so many tools, you also figure it out. You do the work.
Yeah.
And whatever that work may be, I can't even tell you that.
Exactly. That's the problem. Like, we're not working on, say, am I building a ship today, or am I building a potted plant, or what am I doing? I'm just working. I'm creating work for myself, and then I'm fulfilling that work also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the underlying, in a way, like all of these symptoms are pointing to that trust that the human on the other side can do better, wants to do better, is kind of striving, is desperate to do better.
Yeah.
But every signal they are getting is quenching that urge.
Yeah.
Right. So I, as a somebody who's been in a firm for 5-6 years, I want to do better. I want to create better output, better ideas, better. But every signal is telling me, hey, there's no reward for this.
Yeah.
I can't promise you a reward. I can't promise you mentorship, time, energy. Tomorrow you may come in and you may not have this job. And so that entire trust and kind of fellowship is eroding.
Yeah. And that's what, and then you're disillusioned with roles like consulting. I was just thinking, because said in an okay, again, it goes both ways, takes two hands to clap. But today, you need more consulting, I think, not less. Like, you need more people who know more deeply what the problems are that you're suffering from. And people with those soft skills, right? Like that intuitive understanding, people who've seen this happen in 4 or 5 places. Because I mean, for an employee, quiet contribution may still be an option, but for vendors, it's not an option.
It's not,
right? Like two months and you're out.
Correct.
And you don't have any way, means, and it's not even that you're doing a bad job. It's just you, like I said, you don't know what you're building.
Yeah.
And finally, the client is like, I'm tired, Chat GPT can do this job, right? Like
No, you're right that investing in or trusting the person you've brought in as a partner, call them vendor, consultant, whatever. I think there needs to be more of that now.
Yeah.
Because someone is saying that, hey, I am willing to dive into what you do, understand it initially from an outside lens, and then be a part of it and problem solve with you and find solutions for you and with you, and try and reach a better place. Like somebody is willing to do that.
Yeah. So truly, why are you resisting that? No?
Yeah.
I mean, one, I get the exhaustion and the jadedness, and I get that in large organizations there are processes again where you have to go through multiple, jump through hoops and figure this out. But I don't know if you are a leader at every scale and level imaginable, and I'm going to be very India specific in this context because we've always had that spirit of innovation.
Correct.
Always had that spirit of figuring out how do we do things differently, better. I feel we are losing that. Like we've
Yeah.
gotten so much into okay, let's mimic what we are seeing out there in the world that we are forgetting that our last stand is still the fact that we know how to live in joint families.
Yeah.
We know how to figure out relationships in non-ideal circumstances. We're culturally very social units,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I feel we should use that more to our advantage and not to like make this a transaction.
Yeah. And I think that's the, if we had to kind of say something to both sides, to the employee, like, are you quiet contributing or are you burning out? Now, if you're burning out, that's a different story.
Yeah.
That needs a completely different approach,
Yeah.
support, etc. But if you've said, hey, I'm just going to be this much, then can you just take a hard look at, hey, your growth has stopped.
Yeah.
So there is going to be, it's going to hurt you at some point. If not now, 6 months later,
Oh,
1 year
for sure.
later,
For sure.
etc.
Yeah.
It is going to come back to say, hey, what have I learned in
Yeah.
the
In
last
fact,
1
we've
year?
had this instance of another agency partner and I, we both worked with the same stakeholder within a client ecosystem. And this is independent agencies coming to the same conclusion, right? We were just thinking that that individual is damaging their own careers so much in the act of doing the bare minimum and making it look like
That, yeah,
it's good
yeah.
enough.
Yeah, no, I think, as an individual, it's always good to reflect on when did I last give my 110%? What did that look like?
Yeah.
What did that lead to? And I'm sure it will really be like, oh, wow, remember I did,
Yeah.
like, that was how good it was or how
Yeah.
good I felt.
Yeah.
Simply because I learned something, did something, produced something, gave an idea, really, really contributed.
Yeah.
And I think those reflections are important before you kind of give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, there are 101 reasons why you can blame the system and the environment around you. But is this forever? Because at some point, this step back is
Consolidation
going
will
to hurt
happen.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in fact, as I'm seeing, it's happening in 5-10 minutes of someone discovering a tool for the first time. The first reaction is relief, right? Oh, this
Yeah.
thing got done so quickly.
Yeah.
But then very quickly you start seeing the structural flaws. You try to repeat the process 10 times, you get the same output 10 times,
Yeah.
which is not what is needed. I think we are all forgetting that finally that output has to serve a purpose, right?
Correct.
If it's an ad, it has to go out and impact
Yeah.
a real human
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
If it's a blog, in today's case, it has to be found by an AI tool more than it's found
Yeah.
by the company. So there's a purpose that it's supposed to
Yeah.
fulfill
Yeah.
and not just be, okay, I finished this work and,
Correct.
we're good to
Correct.
go.
Yeah, no, I think as managers, leaders also, it's not just because you're present or you've brought everybody into the room, that's not engagement, right? And it's not about, I
Calling
don't
people
know.
back to work,
Yeah,
and
and
if
saying,
anything, it's making it worse.
yeah, like it's not like,
Ironically.
I don't know, Taco Tuesdays or whatever it is in
Yeah,
India,
yeah.
right? Like Pizza Fridays or whatever.
Yeah.
You need to really kind of,
Understand what engagement means, honestly. Like you want an active individual
yeah.
coming into the room. And I think honestly, the place to learn about this, I'm realizing, is a lot of new age schools and frontier schools, which spend a lot of time on the concept of the whole child. Right? Like we were saying earlier, who's the individual who's coming in on a Monday morning
Correct.
and what has happened in their lives. Over the weekend, which was such casual water cooler banter for us. It's sad that we are having to say these things out
because
loud.
the water cooler itself is gone.
Yeah.
And what you brought up is so important because this same child who's being looked at holistically and nurtured is going to enter the workplace and be so disillusioned.
Yeah.
Right.
I worry about
And
that so much.
and we can't blame the child because we created that.
Yeah.
And we've brought this, the child has aged into the workplace, so the workplace also has to adopt to that generation, right? So that constantly we have to kind
Keep
of
checking in with ourselves. Yeah, I think it's high time that we start asking. And I think a lot of senior leaders now, and also because we are a generation that's grown up sharing on LinkedIn, sharing on social media largely, right?
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that a lot of people are going towards, okay, what is my relevance? Who am I now? Like my skills are.
Yeah.
But the fact is, these are the skills that you will need to be so sure of who you are. You will have to do the work of saying, I'm going to whatever fight my demons, personal,
Yeah.
professional, all of those, and I'm really going to step up in the contribution. I think that's the work for those of us, who
Yeah.
now have 15, 20 years plus of experience. I think it's our time to really step up and say, enough is enough. I'm going to build something that has empathy somewhere.
And what is reassuring is that so much talk of in even in the creative world that tools are taking, but I feel like in the last maybe couple of years, if you're paying attention, the quality of some of the creative things we're seeing out there is superlative, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it is even, I don't know, the rom-com or the TV show
Hmm.
that we're watching,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like the ones we've recommended, like a
Yeah.
Shrinking or a Ted Lasso or
Yeah,
whatever, like
yeah.
just the sheer quality of the
Yeah.
human creative person putting that.
Who's in active rebellion against the forces of
Yeah,
our time,
yeah.
right? Like, I
and
think,
and
yeah.
not just, I mean, that in terms of the kind of, when you go to art exhibitions or in,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of work you see,
Yeah.
or even the long form content, like you're sitting and watching a professor's lecture, right? Like
Mm.
somebody, there's a human being who's learned
Yeah.
that, put that together, sharing it out in the world.
Yeah.
Long form writing, like you just have to remind yourself of the good
Good
things.
things that are out there and model after those and
Yeah.
not be so jaded, because when you love something, it shows.
Yeah,
It really
yeah,
does.
and like take inspiration from that, and even bring 10% of that into your day job, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think can, I don't know, give you hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Forget, like I'm not saying then produce great work for, like
Yeah,
first
yeah.
give yourself, engage
Yeah,
with
yeah.
yourself, you
Consistently
know.
give yourself a reason to be where you are.
Yeah,
Beyond that one paycheck that's going to hit once a month, at some point, that becomes the bare minimum, right? If
correct,
I'm going to spend time, then I'm going to earn for it.
correct,
But yeah, the loss of, I don't know, the spark that
correct.
makes you human
Yeah.
is a really individual loss. You'll feel
Yeah,
it.
find that Mary Kondo joy, even though she gave up on it, let us not.
Does this job spark joy?
Yeah. And because apparently the quiet, what was it we started with? Quiet quitting to
Yeah.
quiet contribution. And the next is, I don't know why they're predicting the next, but it's quiet cracking. And I don't even want to wonder
Yeah,
like what's
yeah.
cracking and what's going to happen.
Do we really want to push people that far? Like,
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
time we stop. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just so much to do and explore and learn. I
Yeah,
think like
yeah.
you have to just take 10% of it, even if you feel like you're that corporate cubicle held hostage type person. I don't know. I think there's something even there that can get you a little bit more engaged with what you do,
Yeah.
because this won't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And those who've done the work, I think, will reap the reward at some stage.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, so let's see what new terminology pops up when we're back next.
Oh
Thank you,
gosh.
folks. Remember to share, like, subscribe, tell a friend, just do your thing. Thank you. So, our next segment is Read, Watch, Listen, and my recommendation today is a watch, which is actually season 2 of a brilliant concept. Season 1 was called Jury Duty, and I think I recommended that, I'm not sure. But the premise is that the entire show and the entire setup is actors who are all playing a part, but there is one individual to whom this is real. They don't know that the rest are actors. So Jury Duty season 1 was in a court, as the name suggests. But season 2 has gone above and beyond, if I may say so. Jury Duty, the company retreat. And I think, a lot of what we were speaking about today, engagement and leaders and managers. So it's about this family business and how every year they go on this 3-4 day retreat. And they've hired this guy as a temporary HR assistant, and he has no clue that the whole thing is staged, and it is just a riot. And it's a riot because it's genuinely funny, and two, the you see the version of every kind of employee and every kind of human reaction to workplace events and occurrences, and it's just a brilliant watch. So please do catch Jury Duty, the company retreat.
So, speaking of things done well, one show that is very slowly picking up but very organically picking up is Widow's Bay. The genre is horror comedy, but it covers a wide range of subjects and topics. And honestly, some of those characters are so irritating that you'll fall in love with them. Um, Funnily enough, it's also a workplace show. That's all I'm going to say. Do give Widow's Bay a watch on Apple TV or Prime Video.